Roar!
Ew.
Hello and welcome to Midnight Readings. Today we'll be reading a Halloween special called Dreaming, written by Consega, something like that. Hope you all enjoy. Where did we put our things? Princess Luna let out an exasperated sigh. It was the day of Nightmare Night Festival, and the princess was scheduled for a visit to Ponyville. Of course, that was if she could find her Nightmare Moon armor. Every single time, she muttered to herself, throwing her possessions around with bursts of Solarian magic. We have some sort of event going on, we're always caught Aha! With a triumphant yell, 6 pieces of armor were levitated into the air, darkly reflecting the light cast by Luna's horn. 6 pieces of moon silver crafted in a distant star, and cooled in the vast emptiness of space, she said fondly, examining each piece carefully. It would be a testament to our skills had it not been born of our hatred and jealousy. A wistful sigh escaped her mouth. Oh well, no changing that now. Perhaps it is better for us this way. After all, it's bringing us closer to our subjects. A smile broke out over her face, as fond memories of the previous year washed over her. Well, there isn't any use of it dawning on this quite yet, Luna muttered, blowing a mount of dust off her helmet. It's still my sister's day, after all. Still smiling, she set the pieces of armor onto her empty dresser top, arranging them from helmet to greaves. Might as well grab as much sleep as we can before tonight, Luna muttered, stretching and yawning hugely. It's going to be a busy one. Giggling tiredly, she climbed back into her bed, tugged the blankets over her head, and slowly drifted back into sleep. It wasn't outrageously chilly, especially for this time of year. Winter was approaching, and Luna could taste the oncoming storm that was still months away on the wind that tousled her mane. Opening her eyes, she took in the scene around her. She was atop a crest of a hill, overlooking the entirety of Ponyville. As she looked down over it, she expected to see fillies and colts parading around the streets in costume, or the festival of carnival games that she attended last year, or even fretting parent here or there looking for their young ones. Instead, the town was completely silent. Luna cocked her head and swiveled her ears, attempting to catch any sign of Nightmare Night. All her efforts were for naught. However, as the only thing to reach her ears was silence. Luna flinched, though it felt as if her hooves were rooted to place. Surely that was just the breeze playing tricks on her. Right? Luna! Show yourself, fiend or trickster! The Princess of the Moon shouted to the air. We are the protector of the night, Princess Luna, and we will not be trifled with this way. Despite her tough facade, Luna's legs were unsteady, and her knees felt like buckling. Once again she attempted to lift her hooves off the ground, only to once again feel like heavy construction blocks were tied to her, anchoring her firmly to the ground and snaring her in place. A cold cackle pervaded the air, giving Luna chills, independent of the breeze that still flowed gently around her head. Luna, how could you forget us so quickly? 2 pinpricks of red light began to glow mere inches away from the midnight blue alicorn's face. We were so close once. We demand that you show yourself this instant, Luna stammered, giving the 2 red lights the hardest glare she could muster. As you wish, little sister. A dark outline began to materialize around the 2 red pinpricks, a long tapered horn, a pair of feathery, majestic wings, a crown tiara hybrid set with beautiful jewels, and a glowing sun emblem of a cutie mark. Sister? What are you doing here? As relieved as Luna was to see her kin, she was still uneasy. While it was definitely her sister, Luna still felt off about Celestia. After all, glowing red eyes weren't a part of her attire last time Luna checked. Just playing a little game, sister dearest, Celestia muttered, giving Luna a wicked grin. And you're the main participant. Game? What do you mean game? What are you up to? Patience, Lou. The rules will be explained. Celestia trailed off, turning her back on her sister and spreading her wings. Wait! Where are you going? You can't just leave me here like this! Another wicked grin flashed across Celestia's face. Like what, sister? We can't move our legs. Celestia folded her wings and let out a malicious giggle. Luna, have I ever told you how much? As the white alicorn spoke, her teeth began to elongate and sharpen. I hate it when you talk like that. Luna's eyes widened as her sister's body began to twist and deform, her mouth growing much larger than the rest of her body. I bet you taste delicious! Celestia growled as her gaping jaws began to close around Luna's. Luna bolted upright in her bed, drenched in a cold sweat. Her entire body was shivering, and she could still smell the putrid breath of her sister, who wasn't her sister's gaping maw. A dream, she mumbled in disbelief. It was only a dream. As Princess Luna watched the sun set below the horizon, her mind was troubled by her dream. We have never dreamed that vivid, that real unless they mean something. She murmured uneasily, shifting her gaze to the mirror. As she looked, 2 small points of red light began to glow where her eyes rested. Gasping, she blinked and shook her head vigorously. When she looked again, the red lights had vanished. Luna giggled nervously. We should control our imagination more. Shaking off any lingering uneasiness, Luna levitated her armor off her dresser and into a bag she had slung over her shoulder. These thoughts have no place in our mind, she reminded herself sternly. We have festivals to attend, and ponies are awaiting us. And with that, Princess Luna took a brisk hoofstep out of her room. Just think, it's been a entire year since we've been to Ponyville. Luna chatted excitedly to her guards, pulling the midnight chariot. It's a good thing you two decided to dress up. As we've heard, bats are perfect spooky theme for nightmare nights. The 2 bat ponies glanced at each other and rolled their eyes, deciding it would be fruitful to try and explain to the princess that, no ma'am, this is how we always look for the umpteenth time. Instead, they opted to say nothing. It didn't dissuade the chatty princess, though. Oh, we're going to have so much fun, Luna giggled. We're going to be bobbing for apples and spider-tossing and all other sort of fun activities. One of the guards cleared her throat and spoke up. You'll get your chance soon enough, Your Highness. We're nearing the Nightmare Moon Memorial. Perfect! Princess Luna cried with glee. Set us down at the statue and take the carriage to Ponyville. Park it near the library, if at all possible. Miss Sparkle informed me that she'd save a space for our carriage. We want to make our entrance as spectacular as possible. Of course, Your Highness. The rest of the brief flight was traversed in silence, only broken by the sound of Luna rummaging through her bags, triple and quadruple checking she had everything she needed. We want to make Miss Sparkle and her friends proud, Luna thought to herself, allowing another grin to spread across her face. Along with giving Ponyville one of the best nightmare nights ever. Starting our descent, Your Highness, the female bat pony guard said quickly. The chariot began to quickly descend, floating gracefully to the ground. The runners made a soft thump against the ground as Luna hopped out, bag swinging at her side. You're wonderful guards, you two. Luna gave them the warmest smile she could muster. The 2 nodded and returned a smile, taking off to go stow the chariot safely out of sight. Now it's just us, Luna muttered, turning to face the Nightmare Moon statue. A single piece of candy floated from her bag to the ground at the base of the statue. "You will leave us alone for another year, yes?" Luna didn't expect a reply from the inanimate statue, and was not disappointed. The only sound that followed her voice was the wind whistling through the branches of the ever-free forest. "Well, time to go," Luna muttered, adjusting her bag to a more comfortable position. "Can't be late for our own holiday." Clop, 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 clop. As lonely as the walk was turning out to be, Luna accepted the solitude as a blessing. It gave her time to think, which she often never had enough of. She thought of all the experiences she had in the past year, the things she'd learned of that sprouted up in her absence, including the darker side of Canterlot that only comes out to play at the night. Snap! The midnight blue alicorn started in a fright, recoiling at the sudden sound. She had been lost in thought that the sharp noise of her hoof coming down on a small twig jostled her out of her waking dream. "That's odd." Luna pursed her lips, looking around. Normally, the sound of a twig breaking wouldn't even be a concern to us. After this brief pause, the princess continued her trudge towards Ponyville. Clop, 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 clop. "It's weird hearing our own footsteps," she mused. "In fact, there hasn't been any sound of anything other than me and the wind since I landed in the forest." Normally, Luna wouldn't have been perturbed by this slight detail. However, for Nightmare Night, she specifically planned the lunar phases so that a full moon would be over Equestria every time, and the full moons usually sparked the howling of timber wolves. But she hadn't heard any timber wolves since she landed. Nor had she heard the scurry of nocturnal critters such as raccoons or opossums. She hadn't even heard the sound of crickets. Everything was dead silent. A slight shiver went through Luna's body. This is getting a little odd. The sooner we get to Ponyville, the better. With a slight nod to herself, she picked up the pace to a trot, wind flowing a little faster through her mane, and on the wind she thought she could pick up the faint sound of an all-too-familiar cackle. "Finally!" Luna let out a little joyous squeak to herself. She had come up to the isolated clearing that lay just outside Ponyville. This is where, for a night, she would become the idol of fear and darkness that scared the residents of Equestria so good at night. "Let's get these things on, then," she muttered to herself, jamming the helmet on her head with care not to hurt her horn. She slipped on the rest of the armour, arguing for a silent minute that her chest piece, and looked around again. She still couldn't hear anything, but she attributed that to the isolation of the clearing. Surely the revelries in Ponyville dwarfed anything that the town had had in the past. "It's almost midnight," she said confidently. "Almost time for my grand entrance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ha 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 ha! With a maniacal laughter, Luna summoned up swirling clouds of darkness around herself and launched herself into the air above Ponyville. "Insignificant ponies of Ponyville!" she boomed in the royal Canterlot voice. "It is we, Nightmare Moon, your ruler in darkness eternal. We come to this small village asking only one—" Silence. Abruptly, Luna stopped flying, letting the darkness dissipate, back into the shadows. There was no bonfires in the town, no festivals in the streets, no costumed foals prancing about, and no laughing citizens enjoying the holiday. It didn't stop there. There wasn't a single light glowing from any house, a single voice to be heard. There wasn't a pony in sight. It was literally as silent as the grave. Darkness seemed to flow like a river through the streets of Ponyville, obscuring anything Luna could have seen from the air. It was like a dense liquid, clinging to the ground and dirtying everything it touched. Thoroughly confused and shaken, Luna landed at the edge of Ponyville, where the darkness was the thinnest. Conjuring a glow at the end of her horn, she began to make her way towards the square. "If anything happened to the residents of the town, the evidence will be there," she muttered. "Plus, my guard should be near the library, which sits on one of the corners of the square." The sound of her hoofs against the cold cobble steps of the street was enough to put Luna's nerve on edge. It was only the sound that pierced the silence surrounding the ghost town, and echoed off all of the buildings, resounding in Luna's ears. It was as if the armies of ponies were all marching towards the town square. A small part of Luna wanted to turn tail and run as far away from this place as possible, go back to her room in Canterlot and hide there forever. But the larger part of her knew that she had an obligation to all the residents of Equestria, and there was no way she was going to run out on them now, when they needed her most. Shuberkirk Corners, unlit and unoccupied, is creepy on the best of days. Tonight, with the wind causing the sign to creak and the inky blackness that clung to the ground, it was enough to make Luna stare straight ahead and nearly gallop past the place. "We're here," Luna said, glancing around the town square. If anything happened to these ponies, it would be here. She increased the glow emanating from her horn to cover the entire square and came face to face with a screaming statue. The statue itself was of a pony. It had 4 legs, head, tail, mane, 2 ears, and everything that a pony needed to be called a pony. That wasn't what scared Luna about it the most. The statue had been carved into a grotesque pose where the head was twisted at an impossible angle from the body, so the eyes were closer to the ground than the mouth. The teeth within its mouth were filed down to sharp points, and the entire thing looked as if it had been crawling towards Luna before she looked at it. As light continued to disperse the darkness, more and more disturbing statues came into sight. One looked as though it was slithering across the ground on its belly like a snake. One appeared to be coiling its legs as if it were going to spring. One was sitting firmly on the ground, its eyes fixated on the exact spot where Luna was standing. Luna was speechless. She had to blink several times just to confirm that. Did that statue just move? Luna peered at the statue that was posed like a snake. Surely enough, on its legs was a slightly different position than was before. Luna. What? The princess involuntarily answered to her name. Don't blink, Luna. Why? What happens if we blink? Answer me! The only answer came from the form of a cackle floating along the breeze. All around her were statues began to animate, their heads and legs shrieking with the sound of stone grinding against stone. They began to crawl, drag, and otherwise creep towards Luna. No. We have to get out there. We have to go out there. Oh, help me, please. Oh, no. Luna would have ran if she could. She would have stretched her wings and shot off the ground, leaving the earth and going straight to her moon, where she had control of everything. As she tried to do this, she found that her legs once more were unresponsive. Her wings drooped to the ground as if she was infused with lead. She was sinking. The blackness had pulled around her, and she was sinking into it. She could feel the shadow devouring her energy, her will, and she lost hope. She gave up trying to flee, fight, or resist. She hung her head, tears flowing from her eyes, and slowly let the darkness pull her in. She was falling. She was falling into an unforgivable abyss. Memories of betrayal, hatred, and anger rose unbidden to the surface, and the pain was immense. The sound of static filled her ears, pierced only by familiar laughter. Always the laughter. It stopped, being terrifying after a while. Stopped hurting, stopped caring. Whatever. All she wanted to do was... Luna! Princess Luna bolted upright in her bed, covered in cold sweat and shaking from horn to hoof. A very worried-looking Celestia rushed in through the door to Luna's room. You were screaming in your sleep. Are you okay? You're covered in sweat. A single tear fell from Luna's eyes as she fell into her sister's hooves. It was just a dream. Surprised, Celestia pulled her younger sister into an embrace. That's right, Lou. Just a dream. You're all right. Still crying, Luna opened an eye and caught a glimpse of her mirror. She could see herself in her sister's arms, a big pile of blue, blubbery mess. But that wasn't the only thing on her mirror. Written beneath her image, in small red letters, was a question. Or was it? Softly, Luna could hear Celestia let out that familiar cackle. Oh goodness, that gave me the creeps! I'm not good with scary stories. I don't know why I chose to do this one. I read it and thought, oh, this'll be fine. But then, it creeped me the bloody out. I actually had to take a break. I'm so glad I did this whenever I'm completely alone in the house. I'm pretty sure my family would have been freaked out after hearing that scream. I hope you all enjoyed. That definitely was a creepy one, at least for me. I personally am very terrified of the angels from Doctor Who, and I realised that's why this one might have freaked me out, because it had statues, don't blink. God, that episode scared me as a child. I'm gonna go off now and calm down, but I hope you all enjoyed. And keep watching that moon.
And a howling thank you to my Patreons.